In the stage newspaper this week is a terrible story when John Wayne and Raquel Welch was making a cowboy film. And Raquel Welch said, John Wayne, you think you're a tough bugger. Everybody's on how bloody tough you are. Well, let's see how bloody tough you are. You think you're bloody tough, John Wayne. You watch this. And she took a walnut. Now, a walnut is bloody tough, isn't it? I am going to tell you how bloody tough a walnut is. And she put this walnut between her tits, a walnut, and you know how bloody tough a walnut is. Now, John Wayne, she said, you think you're tough, you watch this for being bloody tough. And she put this walnut between her tits and she went, habba. A bloody walnut. She said, right, you think you're tough? And he's smashing pieces on the floor. She said, you think you're bloody tough? What about that for toughness? And you know, that bloody John Wayne, he didn't even look up. He never... She said, right, you bastard. If you don't think that's tough, you bloody watch this. And she took a Brazil nut. Now that is bloody tough, isn't it? There's nothing tougher than the Brazil nut. That is the toughest nut of the lot. And she slid her knickers down and put this Brazil nut between the cheeks of her ass. And you know how tough her... And she reversed up to John Wayne with a Brazil nut in her ass. She says, that's not what you think it is. It's a Brazil nut. And she said, you think you're tough? If you think you're tough, you watch this. And she went, habba. A bloody Brazil nut. And she's smashing pieces on the floor. She said, what about that bastard if you think you're tough? And you know that bloody John Wayne, he never even looked up, not even then. He just went straight on, poking the fire with his prick. But I went in the cinema with Bertha to see a John Wayne film. He said, Jethro, he said, I'll bet you £1. John Wayne, when he walked down the street, he said, I bet you £1 he don't go in the saloon. I said, well, I don't know. I said, well, I'll have a bet with £1. I'll bet £1 he do. He said, I'll bet £1 he bloody don't. And he walked straight in the saloon. I said, you owe me £1. I said, I thought you seen this film last night. He said, I did. But he said, I didn't think he'd go in there again after the bloody hammering he had in there last. But he got down the road here in the snow. There's a woman gone off the road down here in the snow. And he come down with a tractor to pull her out. He said, you're the 4th pregnant woman I've dragged out the ditch this week. She said, I'm not pregnant. He said, you're not out the bloody ditch. He come down, he said, Jethro, he said, I'm burnt. This is down Torquay on the beach. He said, look at me, he said, I'm brown as a nut. He said, oh, set me cock. He said, how can we burn me cock? I said, well, get down the beach early in the morning and I'll dig a pit and put you in the sand and leave your cock just stand out the sand. And I said, by 6 o'clock, he'd be burnt up looking grand. Well, we got down there early morning, and I buried him in the sand with just his cock hanging out the sand, and I sat on the rock, and he was burning up. He's looking bloody good. Then about 2:30 in the afternoon, I went down with a stick and turned him over. But about 4:30, Dawlish and Topsham Women's Institute come on. Mavis, she said, whatever's that? She said, I can't understand it. She said, I got married for one of them. She said, and here they are growing wild. He come in the pub last Sunday morning and I said, you got a black eye, you got a black eye, you got a black eye. He said, have I got a black eye? I said, you got I said, how you get a black eye? Well, he said, I was in church and he said, the woman in front of me, her skirt had gone right up a crease of her ass. Well, he said, I just leaned forward and pulled it out. I said, well, You no business touching the woman's ass. Leave the woman's ass alone. If she's taking in the bits of washing, there's nothing to do with you. You're no business interfering. No wonder you got a black eye. Serve you right for interfering with her ass. He come in this Sunday, another black eye. Said, you got another black eye. He said, that bloody woman. He said, she's in front of me in the church, and he said her frock had gone right up a crease of her ass again. Well, he said, I knew not to touch it. But he said, I never touched it. He said, the man next to me, he said, he leaned forward and pulled it out. Well, he said, I know she don't like it out, so I push it back in. He went to the doctors and he said, Father ain't very good. He said that when he examined him, he said you said your father had a heart attack dental. He said, you've got some tablets. He said, give him the green ones, the blue ones, and the black ones. He said, give him the green ones on Mondays, skip Tuesdays, give him the blue ones on Wednesdays, skip Thursdays, give him the black ones on Fridays, and then start again Monday. Within a week, he's dead. And Dental said, I think my father's dead. Well, he said, them tablets have always worked before. Dental, I don't think it was the tablets that killed him, it was all the bloody skipping. He had twat. He was one of 3 children, one of each, he was. A boy, a girl, and a hairdresser. But I got to make him, he's a coloured boy. He worked for Kelly's Ice Cream down Snowskull. That's his job, working for Kelly's Ice Cream, stirring up ice cream. That's what he do. He don't work any better than the white boys, but he's easier to find when they fall in. He got in Wadebridge, and there'd been a big fire in Wadebridge. Well, Wadebridge is about 6 miles on the other side of the Bodmin, and one of the firemen's helmets had fell in the street, and give the boy credit, he put the helmet on his head and carried it back up to the fireman. Now, wasn't that bloody nice? And the black face and the yellow helmet, he did look bloody good. And he got a big top lip with a hole each side. It's so he can see where he's going when he's whistling. When he got up top with the fireman, one of the Wadebridge firemen was over my word. He said, you're a black bugger. He said, where are you from? He said, I'm from the West Indies. He said, bloody fantastic. He said, Bodmin haven't got here yet.